Good morning, class. Welcome to the second part of this unit. In this video, we talk about the participatory, long word, sensing, which is another IoT application which you may have not noticed before. For participatory sensing, it is also known in the literature as urban citizen or people-centric sensing. It is a form of citizen engagement for the purpose of capturing the city's surrounding environment and daily life. So it was introduced in early 2000s and focused on more city-dwelling campaigns to capture problematic situations such as road faults, air pollution, light parts of the city, daily routines, and so on. So the idea is that we have many people in the city, right? And people are moving around, so they can access many locations where sensors may not be installed or haven't been installed. So, and also nowadays, people are always carrying a smartphone or most of the time smartphones with them. And with smartphones, they can take pictures, they can take videos, and also the information can be published to Facebook or Twitter or anywhere else. With these capabilities, so people think that, so why don't we let people or the citizens to be a mobile, I should say, to be moving data collectors. Basically, they will help to access many data when they are doing their daily activities, and also marking down what they see, what they hear. So the whole idea is to make use of every single citizen as a data collection point with the help of smart devices, especially smartphones. So with this in mind, you see for the road faults, right? So if there is a pothole on the road, so for the Department of Transportation, they have surveillance vehicles, but it is very likely that the surveillance vehicles will take a long time to notice the road defect, the pothole, right? But the drivers on the road, they may notice this very soon because they drive. And if they can take pictures or maybe just send a Twitter regarding this road defect, and if this data can be processed properly, so the potholes or the road defects can be identified by the relevant by the involved departments. So that will accelerate the efficiency of road maintenance. The same also applies to air pollution. So we have air pollution sensors at some locations in the city, but not everywhere, right? So, but people are moving around very well. So if people notice some abnormal condition of air pollution in the city, so nowadays people like to send Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, those things. So this information may be accessed from the Twitter, from the Facebook, the posts they published. In that case, if this data, once again, processed properly, so the air pollution issue can be identified in a timely manner. So that's the idea behind the participatory sensing. So, and that's also, in recent years, the concept has gone through a transformation in terms of branding, people engagement practice, target audience, and business models. So we're looking into how this transformation has been taking place in this aspect in the next slides. And the main constituents of the PS stands for participatory sensing activity is the city inhabitants acting as human sensors and often as end users of the end PS product. Because most of the time, after the data is processed and the information is identified, for example, if there is a fire there, so the information will be provided to every citizen, right? Saying that there's a fire in this street, there is an air pollution area in the north of the city, something like that. So the end users can be everyone, and the data collectors can also be everyone as human sensors. Okay, with this introduction, the purpose of early PS was to empower citizens to transform their cities into a collective ultimate living environment. So the ultimate goal is to make it a better living place, right? With today's technology, citizens have several means of capturing and sharing their daily life and their views of the quality of living in the city, right? There are many posts, there are social medias, there are also, nowadays social media is a main channel. So most citizens nowadays, they have mobile phones that they can provide pictures, movies, and sounds and share on the internet. Very common nowadays, right? The information can then be analyzed and interpreted by individuals, groups, or city officials, and conclusion will be drawn. This information collection can be initiated by a specific sensing collection campaign organized by an integrated actor. So usually, sometimes there will be some initiatives or campaign. So if you go to the website of DMV, Department of Mobile Vehicle, that's the name. Actually, they recommend drivers to provide pothole road defect information on their website. That's kind of a campaign. For our case, this chapter describes the traditional PS concepts along with example study, and then we're also looking most recent and future trends, and also with examples. Now let's see what has been transforming in this PS, the participatory sensing. The main potential actors in a PS sensing are the individuals and city authorities. So actors means players, right? The people involved. So the city inhabitants, clearly they have access to sensing devices and can use them to capture environment. Individuals can be one group of the receivers of the collected information and the target for environmental changes based on the PS. Basically, they are the collectors and also the final users. And for city authorities, they can be the receiver of the collected information and also the organizer of the campaigns, data collection campaigns. They can also analyze the collected information, potentially with individual citizens, set plans of action and follow the actions. So just in the previous example, if citizens collect data of the road defects, then the government, maybe the DMV or Department of Transportation, they will analyze the data to see whether it is false information, whether they will also see whether the pothole is really severe, and they will take actions to do the maintenance, right? So this example illustrates these two groups of actors, the city inhabitants and also the city authorities. During this process, let me check. During the process, we will have if we look into more details, so individual can potentially act as the data collector, and also an individual and city operator can play the role of the collection system operator. Basically, for example, for data collector, it means that you use a mobile phone to take a picture. The picture needs to be sent to somewhere, right? Maybe it is a flat platform. Maybe the platform can be maybe just like social medias, or maybe some specific websites provided by the government. So basically, some people need to take care of these platforms. So that's the collection system operator. And also we need analysis provider who can process, stores, and analyze the collected data. And also we need someone to take action, which is the action responsible. So these are the roles in the process based on the functions. And in the previous slide, the city inhabitants and city authorities, they are the natural groups. And these are the function groups. As we can, based on our general observation, the city authorities typically assume the non-data collection role. That means that other than data collector, so the authorities usually will take care of the collection data operator, the LNS provider, and the action responsible. On the other hand, the citizens' major role is data collector. Sometimes, well, they may participate in some other roles, but their major role is the data collector. So, depending on the degree and engagement of different actors, there are three main models for participation in a PS activity. So the first one is the collective design and investigation. In this model, individual citizens design the sensing campaign, participate in the data collection, and analyze and interpret the collected data. Therefore, the citizens are free empowered to contribute to change, and they will like to see in their living environment. Basically, the city authorities are not involved here. So for the public contribution, so individual citizens may only take active participation in data collection phase organized by another individual or organization, for example, city authorities, but do not necessarily analyze and interpret the results. So the pothole example is one of these. And another way is the personal use and reflection. So individual citizens monitor and record their daily lives for themselves without any organization campaign. For example, nowadays many people when they go running, they will have the mobile phone measuring their running distance and also their heart rate, some kind of things, right? They may most of the time, when you measure your running distance, usually you don't. Sometimes you just keep it in your phone. You don't share it with anyone, right? Or sometimes you can share it. So the collected data are used mainly for personal reflection or sharing and reflection within a very small private group. So for example, you may share it with your friends, with your family members, but the purpose is just for personal reflection. So that's the three scenarios. So with that in mind, the participatory sensing process typically will follow the basic steps listed here: the coordination, capture, transfer and storage, processing, analysis, visualization, and action. So we'll go through this process here. So during the coordination phase, the participants need to either organize themselves or be recruited by other entities, for example, the government, within the context of sensing campaign. And then in the capture phase, basically that's the time when you collect data, right? And then the collected data are transferred to the data collection system through the phone connectivity options and stored on the internet servers, private or public. So nowadays, when you mark down your exercise data, so many companies, for example, the Fitbit or the Apple, they may provide some services for you to store your data on the cloud. So basically, the platform they provide, it belongs to the transfer and storage phase. The data are then subject to pre-processing so that the privacy of data collector is preserved, and access control rules are added so that the data can be accessed anytime by only authorized individual and services. So that's processing. But if we go further, we will reach the analysis and visualization phase. Basically, we will obtain useful information and data from the useful information and knowledge from the data we collected, and also visualize it into a meaningful way. But usually that's not the end. Certain actions may be taken by individuals or city authorities. Usually remember that the purpose of participatory sensing is to make our city or make our environment a better place. So after getting the information, we need to react. So that's why we need an action phase. If we just analyze it and maybe visualize it, but we don't make any changes, so that's not finished, right? And feedback is represented throughout the whole process and typically assess the catch-up phrase of the phases. So if there are any issues, the feedback should be provided in all the different phases. As we mentioned, so nowadays we have smartphones or mobile phone. Smartphone. Okay, one of the main pieces of technology for PS campaign is the mobile phone. Yeah, so we are still talking mobile phone now, and we'll move into smartphone later. So the minimum capability is the communication capability, right, to allow transformation and reception of messages and potential sensing data. So basically, even it is not a smartphone, it should have such capabilities to transfer messages. For example, you may send out a tweet without a picture. They can send text messages within their own sensor data. For example, the message can be like this. So pothole on the corner of May and 3rd Street. And also, you need to have some communication capabilities. So no matter it is using cellular or Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, basically they need to communicate and send the data, right? So we list some examples here. But for you, those may be old days. Now we are using smart mobile phones. Or most of the time we just call smartphones, right? Because it's mobile. They're mobile. They begin to dominate the market. So they are in convenience, and also they have all kinds of sensors. And also they provide actuators. In other words, they'll get him more powerful, right? For example, if we look at the sensors, we have the photo video sensors and also the accelerometer. We have the light intensity sensor, the gyroscope, then measure the rotation. Accelerometer measures the vibration. Compasses, so measure the direction, right? GPS, measure the location. Infrared sensors, that measures the human movement and also the maybe temperature. And also microphone, that can capture the ambient noise and color voice. So you see, wow, there are almost 10 sensors, and they are very typical nowadays, right? And for actuators, they have the vibrators, they have the speakers, yeah, that can be also used. So an important requirement for any sensor system, and therefore for a mobile phone as a means of sensing, it is the ability to annotate the collected data with some time and location information. So that's actually what we mention as the context information in the smart cities, right? So if you get a data, for example, temperature data, we need to know where the temperature is measured and when it is measured, right? So if it is measured 10 days ago, it may not be able to use for making decisions now. So the time and location information is not listed as a minimum requirement on the phone capabilities because participant can annotate and collect data himself, for example, by writing the time and location in the message. But that's, of course, not convenient, right? Fortunately, so location sensors standard in most modern smartphones. So did you notice that when you take a picture, so if you enable the function, basically you will see the location where you take the picture. If you don't believe, go to the albums of your phone and see. Actually, you can see the location where you take the pictures. And also, timestamping images and videos are also supported in a majority of mobile phones. As long as because for modern mobile phones, it can display the time, right? So the location and time is always available nowadays. So in the case of other sensor modalities useful for campaign, for example, the vibration, a special application is often designed and disseminated as part of the campaign in order to make it convenient to the people, the participant. So what it means is that, so time and location are by default available. But if we need to collect other data, for example, the vibration, the noise, something like that, usually a specific app or application is needed. So after the data is collected, it will be transferred to dedicated servers. It can from either a server farm in the premise of the collection system operator, or from a commercially available cloud platform, such as the cloud platform of for example, the Amazon AWS platform, or the Google Drive, those kind of things. But we definitely need a dedicated server to store the data, and also to process the data, analyze the data, and visualization, and facilitate the visualization of the data. So after the necessary data is collected, the analysis provider is responsible for analyzing the data. So the analysis can be simple, as citizens sifting through the data and discuss with other citizens their conclusion. For example, looking at hundreds of photos of poorly maintained neighborhoods. So that can be found easily, and sometimes it can be sophisticated and need to be automatic. For example, if we need to determine the light or noise level of the city according to the neighborhoods and the time of day, so that's a more sophisticated analysis. The level of certification is clearly up to the imagination of the campaign responsible. So, of course, each PS scenario requires different sensor modalities, different sensors, and different collection process, analysis, and visualization capabilities. So, to put it simple, the more organized the campaign in terms of software and hardware capabilities, the lower the barrier, the participation, and the higher the number of participants. If it requires you to install a sophisticated software, and you need to follow, some specific actions. So basically, people now don't want to get into troublesome, activities, right? In that case, they may not attract many participants. So the best scenario is that, so you don't even know your phone is collecting the data. Basically, you just do whatever you should be doing, you need to do, and the data has been collected without you noticing it. So that's the ultimate goal, and that's what I will discuss a little bit more into detail when we talk about the future, talk about the current and future trends later in this video. In an early scenario, it is a campaign. The specific use case that we present here involves bikers moving in the city, carrying their mobile phones on themselves, and probably several other sensing devices on the bikes. The bikes can be simple, ordinary bikes, and they may have been equipped with other sensors, including CO2 and speed meters. So basically, it is a campaign based on the bikers. What happened is that as bikers moving in the street, all data collected from sensor are transported to dedicated servers, and the individuals or city authorities retrieve the data and analyze them. And that's the way how it is done. So I list these two slides as the italic. Basically, it is quite straightforward. So you can read into more detail. Basically, they measure some environment metrics, including the CO2. Basically, that's related to air quality and also the noise by using the microphones, something like that. And for the speedometers, it can measure the traffic flow, right? So if your bike moves very slowly, so it may indicate that there is a traffic issue there. And during this process, the mobile phone plays a role of the sensor and the communication device. Basically, all the data will make use of the phone to be uploaded to the dedicated servers. So that's an illustration of it. So we have data collectors, and the data will be made available to the data collection system, and the data will be used. So for this scenario, the collected data will be used to assess the noises, the air quality, and also the traffic flow. So as we mentioned, the idea of participatory sensing came up at around 2000. So it's already 20 years ago. So nowadays, we have some new trends in this area. So in terms of the branding, people engagement practices, target audience, and business model. So first of all, for the branding, the 10 years today will be like urban sensing, social sensing, and citizen sensing. So we don't emphasize the word participatory aspect anymore. And one of the reasons is that now the sensing does not, it's trying to reduce the active participation of the same users. So basically the users don't need to do something on purpose, do some specific movement or actions to collect the data. Instead, the data will be collected with the minimum notice of the people. And also the term campaign itself implies active participation for the design and execution of the sensing session, and therefore active participation in the change system we like to see. However, today's citizen sensing focuses more on analyzing and visualizing any data collected from people. And also, today's PS activities are mainly uncoordinated and either active or passive. Uncoordinated, for example, just remember that. So if you are doing running every day, so you just measure the walking distance, and also yourself, right? And also, if you notice there is a traffic accident, or maybe there is a damage of the public resources, so many of you may just take a picture and post it to the social media, and no one is coordinating this. So that's why we mentioned that today's PS activities are mainly uncoordinated, and sometimes it is active, and so basically you need to do something intentionally, and sometimes it is passive, and the data is collected without your notice. So the shift in engagement practice can be expressed with the introduction of two new participant models, the spontaneous participation or citizen journalism, and the passive and unaware participation. So now let's look at the citizen journalism. Individuals monitor and record their lives similar to the personal use and reflection model for early PS models without an organized sensing campaign. Basically, you use blogs, Twitter feeds, social media networks to do so. So citizen journalism is an active sensing engagement. However, the target audience for the sensing campaign is the journalist's own followers, readers, and viewers. So remember, that's your experience from the social network, right? Basically, you will follow some people, and you may be followed by other people. Basically, you look at their content. That's how it works now. This type of model is typically used by individuals and authorities during exceptional circumstances such as disasters, and also without excluding the citizen journalists who regularly post their versions of news. So nowadays with the advancement of the social media, so sometimes the news can travel very quickly, right? So if there is an earthquake in an area, so another area, maybe thousands of miles away, can get the information maybe within a few minutes, thanks to the social network. And this is quite important for the exceptional circumstances such as disasters. The value of this citizen journalist reports is the freshness of the reports, because the individual witnesses are on scene before any city authorities and news responders arrive. You should have this experience in your life. The behavior of citizens is captured, stored, and analyzed with accuracy. I forgot to mention. So that's the active participation, basically in the format of citizen journalism. Basically, they intend to take the pictures and share it, right? And another way is to minimize the awareness of the participants, which is the passive participation. The behavior of citizens is captured, stored, and analyzed with actual citizens often aware of the fact that behavioral data can be used for the public or other private sector. So that's, for example, the running data you collected. So they can be used for other purposes. In such cases, the data anonymized and properly upgraded in order to preserve the privacy of citizens. Example include traffic cameras, electricity metering of certain neighborhood and credit card transactions. So either city authorities and private companies collect data about people's behavior and use them for their purposes. So remember we mentioned the website browsing example. So now it is quite aggressive. So sometimes you just click into a website regarding a type of product by mistake. For me, sometimes you have some advertisement pop up on some websites, right? So sometimes you just click them by mistake, and later, so the website has been pushing similar products to you. That's using your data. So with this scenario, the target audience for the analyzed data is not necessarily citizens or the city authorities, but also private sector employees. Basically, the companies will know, for example, your purchasing habits, and they will send you the corresponding information. And the most recent citizen sensing activities put more weight on making the collection, analysis, and visualization more automated. And people are still and there are some incentive for shifting the focus from the manual process to automated methods, thanks to the data management technologies, machine learning, and knowledge management technologies. So however, during this process, as we mentioned in earlier chapters, under the setting of Internet of Things, information and the data can be sold. This is also true here. This information and knowledge can be sold in an information market. So example are the analysis of Twitter messages for detecting market trends or consumer certification. So that basically now every day you're collecting data for companies. Maybe you don't even notice it. And social sensing is another trend in the recent world. So social sensing refers to sensing of physical phenomenon by human or devices used by humans. Basically, it is mobile phones and sensors. So in social sensing, the data reported by humans or devices are a combination of sensor data and also natural language tests and user capture media such as photos, audio, and video. So basically, it is making use of your mobile phones, smartphones. But as you have experience with the social medias like Facebook and Twitter, there are real messages, there are true messages, and there are false messages, and there are inaccurate messages. So the main challenge of social sensing, therefore, is the overall quality, reliability, and quality of information for assessing the state of physical world based on the human reporting. Because it is hoped that the fake information, the fake news will be banned, but sometimes, the administration is not reacting fast enough, right? In that case, those data may be misleading. There are two challenges: cyber-physical and linguist and social challenges. The cyber-physical challenge is about the modeling of human reporting in a similar way as a typical sensor, which has a specific reliability and accuracy model, and a well-specific model of observed phenomena. Basically, human beings rely on their perception of an event, right? And sometimes the perception is not accurate, sometimes it's not correct, and sometimes people will add some bias there. In that case, maybe it is originally a neutral event, but people will use some biased word when describing the event, so that it will create some bias for other people. And from the linguistic part, the challenge is that the vagueness and ambiguity of human languages. And sometimes you have some typos, right? Yeah, some students send, when they send emails, they have some typos. And even for me, I have some typos sometimes. So that's the two challenges related to the human perception and also the languages. So with these three new trends, let's look at a modern example. So it is exploiting the citizen journalist report from a disaster site in order to produce richer information content and potentially help others who are close to the disaster area. For example, if there is a earthquake, or maybe there is a tsunami, so sometimes the authorities may not spread information quick enough. But for the people on site, if the communication is still available, the information will be out very quickly from their social media. Okay, let's look at an example here. So we have three citizen journalists that observe a fire on the corner of Oak and Birch Street near Oak Park. Never mind. Basically, three citizen journalists observed a fire. Okay, so it's at the corner. Okay, so what will they do? Basically, they will send a Twitter individually. At different time incident, each of the participants posts a short message tweet with a different description, different intention, and probably spelling and language errors. So for example, for the journalist 1, name the location this way. The journalist 2, name the location this way with a typo. And also the third one indicated, which is more accurate, it is the corner there, and there are also typos. For example, the winds instead of the winds. As the Twitter feeds allow only short messages, there are typically links, more content. For the more interested tweeters, for example, a photo taken from the site annotated with the GPS location. So the two tweeters include such links in their tweet with the links redirecting to another site. Here, photos are stored. In terms of the PS process, all and most of the tweets by the citizen journalists need to be discovered and collected. So, which is not an easy task. Basically, we need to link the actual text, metadata, and the link content of site servers. And we also need third-party publicly available data sources, such as maps and city authorization buildings, to verify the addresses and enable the transformation of location information into one format to another. For example, from GPS to the building address. And also, we need to collect data regarding the weather information. We'll see how this weather information is used in next slide. Okay, after all this information, data are collected and processed. All these resources are subject to correlation and analysis before any visualization and actions are taken. Correlation means that we put all the data we collected from different sources together and try to find a correlation there. Basically, we want to extract a central accurate message from the data. So as we mentioned earlier, there are maybe typos, there may be some inaccuracy of the description. For example, someone may mention that the fire is on the north of the area, but who knows whether he made a mistake of the direction, right? An example of further analysis is the semantic analysis of all the resources, extraction of the thematic context, as well as the temporal and spatial context, and the fusion of these pieces into a coherent report. And also the report is that the location of the fire is this location, Oak Park, especially at the corner here. And because there are strong winds, the fire is intense, and there's heavy smokes and that obstructs the driving. So this part of your information will come from where? It will come from the photos, right? And this location the fire location will come from what? It will come from the tweet, but there are some errors, right? Maybe that, and also it will come from the GPS information and also the map services, and also based on the there means there's strong winds. So the winds can come from the videos, and also it can come from the weather service, right? And based on this information, a prediction can be made for the fire movement. So if the fire is moving east, then the people living in the east may need to evacuate, right? So that's a typical example showing the process. Basically, so some information is initiated from the tweet or maybe some other social medias, and based on that, additional information is collected regarding the, for example, the GPS, the maps, and also the weather. And after this all are combined, we will get a coherent report, which not only describe the current status of the event, the location, the severity, and also the damage, but also it will make prediction for the near future. So that's a, ideal, typical IoT application by making use of the, urban sensing, citizen sensing. So the flow is shown here. So we have the spontaneous capture from the tweeters, right? And processing, and also we get third-party sources like GPS, map, and weather processing, and they are all combined together, and we do the correlation analysis. Basically, we remove those inaccurate or misleading information. For example, the location of the fire, some typos, and then we get an accurate description of the event, and based on that, we will take action. So to conclude, so we focus on the use case of participatory or urban or citizen or recent emergent social sensing. So despite their different terms, this form of sensing assumes humans, with the help of devices, most of the time the smartphones, monitor the environment and report sensor data or tests describing a phenomenon. So the phenomenon can be the traffic, can be the fire, can be the air, can be other people. Maybe many people are gathering together to do something bad, right? Basically everything. So there are some research in the past and also recently, and it is still an interesting area. Okay, that's for the social sensing.